The death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has been a topic of great discussion. Many people mourning Her Majesty. Of course, Her Majesty is currently lying in state, and her funeral will take place on Monday. One person who knows specifically politics, but also knows a lot about the Queen and about Her Majesty is Catherine Clark. She was the daughter of former Prime Minister Joe Clark. She's also the host of her podcast that she co-hosts alongside Jennifer Stewart called The Honest Talk. Catherine, thanks so much for joining me. Let me start out with obviously the unfortunate passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. What was your immediate reaction when you heard this news? Obviously, a lot of people were posting about how they were shocked by this. How shocked were you?
You know, I have to say, for the fact that she was 96 years old and that we all understood that even though she was queen, she was still human, I was as shocked as anyone else because Queen Elizabeth projected a sense that she would be with us forever, that she was simply a part of our global fabric. And so even though we knew that the inevitable would eventually happen, I think for a lot of us, especially having seen her earlier in that week, essentially bringing on a new Prime Minister of the UK, it was pretty tough to imagine that 2 days later she would be gone.
What do you make of how people are reacting? I mean, there's people who are waiting 12 hours in a line just to in order to mourn the death of Her Majesty and to see the Queen one last time. What are you, I guess, expecting on Monday as the official funeral of Her Majesty is held?
Boy, I think it's certainly going to be an incredibly historic occasion. I would assume it will be moving in its own way, but I hope it will also allow for the celebration of a life that was remarkably well-lived, that spanned decades of service, and that it will be filled with the respect that her nation and people from nations around the world felt towards her. Whether they agreed with the idea of the monarchy or not, it is almost impossible not to respect the dignity and grace and duty that Queen Elizabeth personified.
And when you look at the relationship between Canada and between the monarchy, specifically in this case, Her Majesty, obviously you were, a part when your dad was Prime Minister, obviously very political life. What would you ultimately say as to the relationship between Canada and the monarchy?
I would say it's an integral part of the history and the foundation of our country. And it's also an integral part of our system of government. And so we saw in the House of Commons when members of Parliament paid tribute that not everyone agrees with the system itself. Certain leaders of political parties had different approaches, but the bottom line was that everyone expressed a feeling of respect towards her personally. And I think that that will certainly continue in the days ahead, regardless of where the discussion about our system of government, a constitutional system goes in the future.